So I discovered that in DMT that we have both a spiritual purpose and a material purpose, and the material purpose is driven by that spiritual purpose, and that is going to be unique to everybody. It's going to be unique to each person, both the spiritual and the material purpose, as are the archetypes. I mean, we share the same archetypes in the DMT, but the purpose is unique to each of us. Everybody has opinions, and opinions are unique for each of us. We all have a different perspective on the world, and I don't think there's a right or wrong perspective on the world because the perspective on the world that we have is based on our experiences that we accumulate in life, that form who we are, that form our outlook, that form our perceptions. So I don't think there's a right or wrong opinion. Beliefs, on the other hand, I think are either right or wrong, but not absolutely right or absolutely wrong. It's not black and white like the Freemasons would have you believe. It's not only two ways of thinking of things. There's a multiplicity of ways of thinking about things, and it's very relative to the observer. It's relative to your position in life. It's relative to your experiences. But when you dissolve those boundaries with psychedelics, particularly with DMT, and you inflate into something that you really were and always are, but don't have that perception while you are constrained as a human being, you suddenly realize that you've already learned every lesson that there is to learn. You already know everything that there is to know, and that life is about the experience. And so I made a mistake in my Kava video when I said that people fail. That we are testing people. We are testing each other. It's a game that the universe is playing. It appears to be. I got to tell you, it looks like some kind of freaky alien experiment down here. When you're looking at it from the higher dimension, it looks like this is all just a game. But the object is to ascend higher, not descend lower, to become better, not to become worse, to love and help each other, not to hate and harm each other. The way to ascend is through positivity, and you descend through negativity. And there's a lot of people who are just not happy if they see you happy. I know when I came back from my DMT breakthrough, I was so overjoyed. I was hugging people. I was dancing with strangers on the streets. It was nuts. I've never felt so good in my life. And there were a lot of people that just didn't like that at all.
You got haters? You got people hating on you? Huh? Shake it off. In my 1.1 million views of my last video, you can't imagine the number of haters that I had. People talking crap about what I look like, saying I'm weird, saying that I'm ugly, saying the weirdest stuff. But you know what? You gotta shake it off. If you want to live a positive, happy life, you gotta know not everybody around you is gonna like that. Not everybody around you wants you to celebrate. But you gotta just do it anyway.
I recently got into a fight with a troll who called me a faggot and called me a douchebag, really brought me down, made me feel like shit. And so I lashed back at this guy. And then he made a video saying that, that we should stay away from negative people like me after he brought me down and made me feel negative. But that's my fault for letting this guy get to me. But this shows you how people are so screwed up. They will bring you down and then they will chastise you or condemn you for bringing you into that state of mind. But again, it comes to allowing people to bring you into a negative state of mind. It all starts and ends with you. The further I get away from DMT, the more unhappy I get. The farther I get away from DMT, the farther away from reality I get. I think that regular psychedelic use is really healthy, and I think it's necessary. I think that especially Mimosa Hostilis DMT is incredibly transformative. Now, it will transform you, and you will retain elements of it for the rest of your life, but it's like food, it's like air, it's like water. I think the psychedelic is a incredibly important part of a person's health and well-being. I think it's essential. I think that the disconnect from the psychedelic and from the Gaian mind and from the higher dimensions is what's leading people into psychotic states, into violent states. It allows people to be misled and lied to. It allows people to be tricked into dark states where they want to kill others, they want to harm others, because it constricts their self-awareness. It constricts and cuts them off from the oneness of the Gaian mind.
Still on those meds, huh?
Yeah, they helped me to think. Okay, time for an eyes open nap.
God, look what those pills are doing to you. Putting you on that stuff was a huge mistake. Like inviting a turtle to a cocktail party.
Hey, ask me why they call me a box turtle.
See, this is how American society treats unique, enthusiastic children. Instead of embracing their mental gifts, their first reaction is to shoot them up with hardcore drugs until they're mindless sheeple. All the better to send off to Kuwait and feed the Halliburton oil machine, right? Bush.
Yep, takes all kinds.
Now, people who have never had the deeper, profound dimethyltryptamine experience come to me and try to explain to me what it is and what it means. And people who have never been able to escape themselves or their reality or their perception to dissolve the boundaries are really the least qualified to make those kinds of assumptions. The fun thing about the psychedelic is trying to figure out what it all means, trying to understand what it all means. You come back with certain truths about the world and certain truths about the spiritual dimension, and it's all about inflation. When you leave your body and you leave the confine, the prison of your head, and you basically inflate. You inflate to this massive thing that has so much more profound awareness and depth of knowledge of all things in the world. And then when you come back from the DMT breakthrough, you constrict back down into your human personal consciousness. The boundaries are rebuilt. But you bring back awareness, you bring back knowledge of things, you bring back information, you bring back ideas, you bring back a lot of concepts. And some of them, may be right and some of them may be wrong. But they're still just ideas and concepts. But mixed in that, there is a lot of truth. And, I don't think that I think the perception or the belief that we are here to learn lessons is a very lower dimensional perspective. It's a material perspective on the world, on the material world. When you inflate to the massive dimethyltryptamine universe, when those boundaries between the personal and the collective unconscious dissolve, suddenly the floodgates are opened. You have this incredible awareness of things that you never were aware of before. And when you constrict back down, you lose much of it. It's like a dream world. This world here, this material world, appears to be a dream when you're fully in that world there. And when you're fully in this world here, that world appears to be a dream as well. But both are real. And this one is just very constricted down. Now, if an ant could smoke DMT, an ant would suddenly transform. Let's say an ant smoked DMT and suddenly transformed into a man, the consciousness of a man, the personal consciousness of a man. It would see the world in an entirely different perspective, an entirely different way. And then after the DMT starts to wear off, the ant would constrict back down to being an ant, but still carry that awareness that it was something more than it was, and have ideas and concepts, and probably tell all his ant buddies about it. And everyone would laugh at him and go, "Oh, you're crazy. You need to go see an ant psychiatrist. There's something wrong with you." But that's what the DMT experience is like. It takes your personal consciousness, dissolves the boundary between the personal and the collective unconscious, and opens up a whole universe to you for a very short time. And then when you come back down, you retain certain elements of it. But most of it is lost because it just doesn't fit into our head. That's the best analogy that I could think of. So I don't think that we are here to learn lessons. I think we are here for the experience. In the same way that you don't get on a roller coaster ride to learn lessons, you go on a roller coaster ride to have the experience.
You know, this may be heresy in a community as oriented toward tradition as this one seems to be. And the generally pleasant position to take is that everybody has a piece of the action. You know, the Hasids know something, the Buddhists know something, the Book of Mormon, there's something there. The mushroom was incredibly ungenerous on this point. It said nobody knows jack shit about what is going on. So it is for you, with your body as laboratory and your mind as worker in that laboratory, to find the way to reflux the alchemical gold. The only experience which counts is your own experience. Everything else is somehow handed down through social structures and political structures. It's irrelevant. If flying saucers were to land on the south lawn of the White House tomorrow, it would not matter to you as much as smoking DMT would if you did that tonight, because that's your experience, your conviction, you see. And I believe that the rebirth of paganism, the rebirth of archaism, the rebirth of psychedelic shamanism is coming at this moment, because we are going to be involved in a historical meltdown, which will be the equivalent of a species-deep shamanic crisis, in which, as a collectivity, we are going to have to make the journey to the well of worlds and recover and cleanse the collective soul of humanity. We have lost touch with our moral compass because we have lost touch with the Gaian mind. And this is not a metaphor. If you take these neurotransmitters, these exopheromones that connect you up with the natural environment, the Gaian intent becomes known. It's an act of feeling. If we could feel what we are doing, we would stop doing it. But we live in a realm of abstraction, excuses, incredible wealth, incredible levels of pampering and softness lie between us, the upper 5% of the intellectual and material elite on the planet, and the problems. I mean, how many of us have been to Bosnia or Rwanda or Somalia? These things are only images on a dehumanizing screen. If we could feel what we are doing, we would awaken to the mystery of each other and to the mystery of the historical process of recovering what was lost. We don't need this material civilization. We don't need 5 billion people on this planet. We have to think very, very radically about how we are going to change ourselves, or we're not going to make the cut. And orthodoxy is utterly and completely bankrupt. All it can do is suppress. They suppress, they suppress, they suppress. But there's only one argument that will forgive suppression: deliverance. And they can't give us deliverance. All they can give us is the Menendez trial, OJ, Baby M, the skaters, Klaus von Bülow. Horseshit, horseshit, horseshit. We are locked inside a nightmare of contaminated and toxic imagery that is designed to disempower you and make it impossible for you to think straight. And the way out is straight back to the reality of the vegetable gnosis. It is there. It has always been there. The societies that never broke the connection live in dynamic and loving balance with each other and the planet today, were it not for the input of our disruptive social and economic systems. So I talk to all kinds of people who I see as part of my community, but it stretches from virtual reality to the radical gay movement, to the house movement, to the pagan movement, to the younger molecular pharmacologists, to the radical art historians and psychotherapists. All of these communities are fragmented and suspicious of each other, and this is precisely what orthodoxy enjoys. If all of these countercultural impulses could make common cause, we would probably discover that we're 65 to 70% of the population. And so what is needed is a spirit of boundary dissolution between individuals, between classes, sexual orientations, rich and poor, man and woman, intellectual and feeling-toned types. If this can happen, then we will make a new world. And if this doesn't happen, nature is fairly pitiless and has a place for us in the shale of this planet where so many have preceded us. Tribes that were nomadic at the time of contact are now agriculturalists, simply because missionary medicine has swollen Aboriginal populations to the point where they can't be nomads as they used to be. So you're right, there are some psychedelic-using cultures that are pretty unappealing, although actually I can only think of one that I find politically very unappealing, and I don't want to knock them because I haven't lived with them, so I may be misled. But I think that it's not simply to take psychedelics, but it's also to decondition oneself to the notion of ego and all the concepts which constellate around that, such as place, property, ownership, and stability. You see, the idea that we have inherited from Western religion and science is the idea that things should be stable. This is a very male-dominant notion, the wish for stability, eternity, when in fact the message life hands you over and over again is nothing lasts. Nothing lasts. Not what you love, not what you hate, not your enemies, your friends, not even your dear, dear self. Nothing lasts. And the ego goes mad in the presence of that truth. It can't swallow it. And so we have anxiety of death, need to dominate people, need to possess property, terror of illness, resentment of fate, because we are not in the flow. And I think what these psychedelics do is they put you very much in the here and now. And it's nothing more than that. I mean, obviously, I'm an egghead and an abstract thinker, and I hope to make my reputation in mathematics. But feeling is the primary validator of existence. I mean, if you don't know that, you've got to go back to square one. And these things empower feeling. They are catalysts for the imagination. I mean, you may not like what psychedelics do to you. They may terrify you. But if it terrifies you, then surely it must have catalyzed your imagination, or you wouldn't have known that terror. So catalysis of the imagination in a fairly loving and yet ruthless way is what the psychedelics deliver. Anybody who calls this escapism is sitting on their thumb. I mean, they don't know what they're talking about. Reality is for people who can't handle this stuff.
takes a lot of courage to go into the dimethyltryptamine universe. I went straight to DMT. I bypassed all the other psychedelics. I bypassed mushrooms and acid and went straight into DMT. And the first day was the only day that I was restrained with it. I did 1 hit or 2 hits every 15 or 20 minutes, but after that I dove into it head first with the highest doses I could. And when you break through to the other side, you will be amazed to discover something very profound and personal to you. My experiences, all of our experiences on DMT are going to be similar, but very unique to us. And the things that I learned are truths for myself. The things that you'll learn are the truths for yourself. And then there's collective truths that you can learn. But, there's no absolute on this thing. It's nuts, but it's incredibly beautiful, and I think incredibly necessary for our continued growth on this planet.